1, 2, 3, 4.
Hi everyone, this is Jewish Talk coming to you live from Nassau Community College on 90.3 WHPC, also streaming on the iHeart and the iTunes app. We can be seen in the studio right now on my Facebook Live page and the Facebook of WHPC. This program is later archived on Spreaker.com. So hi there. My name is Rabbi Pearl. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. This all depends on when you are listening or watching. So welcome everybody, those who are listening to us on this great station, as well as Karen Dumbeck and Jean, good morning, and Doug Ugent and everybody out there, thank you, good morning. Well, guess what? December 22nd in the evening, we will beginning our holiday of Hanukkah. The first candle light is lit on that evening. And so today I thought we would have a little discussion on some of the aspects of the holiday, so when we get there, we are prepared. So I'd like to, right from the get-go, to say Hanukkah is really a holiday of vision. And as I point to my eyes, of vision. You see, let me first tell you, first of all, hello to Harold Kornfeld, all the way from Florida. Don't rub it in Florida, ladies and gentlemen. They have at 81 degrees. And we're sweating bullets over here, anticipating snow and mixed rain and everything else here on Long Island. Hello to Patty Fuchs. Good morning to you and your dear mother, and to everybody out there. So, why is the holiday of Hanukkah really a holiday of vision? First of all, the husband and wife are getting ready to go to sleep. The wife is ready to close her eyes, but the husband is standing and staring at himself in the full-length mirror. What's the matter with you, she says. Come to sleep already. He turns to her and says, I'm so depressed. All I see is a receding hairline, a growing gut, wrinkles under my eyes, and what hair I have is gray. Tell me something positive, something uplifting so I can go to sleep. She thinks for a moment and says, well, the good news is your vision is still 20/20. You could stop laughing, everybody. There is a great, strong association with Hanukkah and the sense of sight, of seeing. Every night, we sing. Each night of Hanukkah, we say, these candles are sacred. We don't have permission to benefit from their light, but their purpose is simply to be looked at. Moreover, we have an interesting, unique law on Hanukkah. The Talmud tells us, recorded in the Code of Jewish Law, Haroeh Mavarach, that one who cannot light for himself or herself, they have some disability, but they see the candles of someone else, and nevertheless make the second blessing of who wrought miracles for our forefathers. Interesting. When I see someone put on tefillin, or take a lulav, or blow a shofar, I don't make this blessing. Only on Hanukkah do I make a blessing when seeing someone else do the mitzvah. Why should this be? And I also want to say hello to Chaz Thompson, an amazing guy. He teaches us and everybody in the community on Narcan, an amazing lifesaver with the fire department, fire commissioner for Point Lookout, Lido, a great friend. Thank you, Chaz, and to your whole family. So the great Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev tells us, again, he gives us the insight that Hanukkah is the holiday of seeing. See, different Jewish holidays correspond with different senses. On Purim holiday, we hear the Megillah. So our hearing is heightened as we listen to the Megillah. On Passover, our sense of taste is sharpened because we eat matzah and maror. So on Hanukkah, he explains, we evaluate our sense of sight, testing how well we see. You see, eyes are a liability. We can see a lot of things, and a lot of things that we see we shouldn't be looking at. See, what kind of seeing are we honing? It is not our physical sense of sight that we talk about. Indeed, in a sort of a paradoxical way, our eyes are a liability. We often feel that seeing is believing. If I can perceive and observe it, it is true. If I can't, it's not real. Now, if we followed this rule, we run the risk of dismissing and disregarding the most precious truths and realities of our lives. There are ideas, there are feelings, there are thoughts, there are dreams that are authentic and genuine, despite the fact that they can't be seen or observed. An important part of the holiday of Hanukkah, as described by our great sages, was the Greek Empire of that time. And they're described as being an influence of darkness, choshech. And expounding on the opening verses of creation, we read, there was darkness on the face of the deep. And this refers to that particular period, the Greek exile. So there's a lot of darkness associated with this holiday. So again, what the holiday represents, the upcoming holiday of Hanukkah, is the ability to see beyond the surface. What is the difference between a room that is filled with darkness versus one filled with light? Is there any change in the room itself? Whether the light is on or off in the room, the furniture remains in the same. The furniture is the same, the layout of the room is the same, the placement of the door is the same, the height of the ceiling is a constant. So what then is the difference between light being on or off in the room? It's just my perception, my ability to identify, to see the reality, the truth, and that which was right before me all along. So along comes the holiday of Hanukkah. It's about seeing things, seeing people, seeing the depth, the holiness in people, ideas, and the miracles that are really right in front of us, even though we may not be able to visibly see them. I think as George Orwell once said, don't tell my colleagues that I'm quoting George Orwell, but he said like this, to see what is in front of one's nose needs a constant struggle. One can live with one's eyes open, perfect vision, and the light is on, and still live a life that's cloaked in darkness. On the other hand, it can be pitch black all around, and yet a person can see with complete clarity. The Chashmonaim, the Hasmoneans of the holiday of Hanukkah, didn't see the fact that they had a few in numbers. They didn't see the fact that they had a weak army. They didn't see the impossible task. What they saw was the mighty hand of God. And they saw their obligation to stand up for the rights for religious freedom. And they saw the divine protection that would accompany them. And that's the challenge of Hanukkah. What do you see? What do you see in another human being? What do you see in the world around us? I want to pause for a moment and say hello to Zalman Stewart. Good morning to you. And Louis Pushkin. Shalom Aleichem. You actually got over. Louis Pushkin is an amazing friend, formerly from Long Island. And he tells me that when on Thanksgiving, he wobbles till he, He gobbles till he wobbles. Fantastic. Gus, good morning to you. Alex Rubenstein, good morning from Staten Island. My goodness, I can't believe this. Staten Island is still on the 5. I thought they seceded from New York City, but they're still there. Thank God, at least for as far as my show is concerned. But seriously, dear friends, thank you all those listening to us. And we'll WHPC 90.3 WHPC. And we're discussing the holiday of Hanukkah, which will be beginning on the eve of December 22nd. And we're explaining that when you see those candles, it's a reminder of light and to be able to see the light in the darkness. In a sense, it's all about the candles and using them to harness our sight. Not from a ophthalmology speaking perspective, but the ability to refocus our deep vision of what is true, what is precious in our life, what is dear in our life. When we look at our spouse, when we look at our children, look at our grandchildren, do we see an amazing blessings of their presence in our lives? Or do we see a lot of noise and we see rooms that need to be cleaned up and a messy home? When we face a challenge, do we see no way out? Or do we see a challenge and opportunity to further lean on our Creator? There are truths all around us. It's up to us to decide what to look at and how to see it. And let me share with you an amazing story. It comes from the Hasidic Tales of the Holocaust, Professor Yafa Layach. And she shares this incredible story of the Chanukah in Bergen-Belsen. Bergen-Belsen, of course, you may know, is one of the concentration camps in Nazi Germany. Chanukah came to Bergen-Belsen. Of course, the time to candle the Chanukah lights. A jug of oil was not to be found. No candles in sight. A menorah belonged to the distant past. So what do they do? They took a wooden clog, a shoe of one of the inmates. That became the menorah. Strings were pulled from a concentration camp uniform. A wick and a black camp shoe polish became the pure oil. So not far from the heaps of bodies, the living skeletons, they assembled to participate in the candling of the Chanukah lights. And there was the Rabbi of Bluzhov. He lit the first candle. He chanted the first two blessings in his pleasant voice. And the festive melody was filled with, of course, sorrow and pain. When he was about to recite the third blessing, he stopped. He turned his head. He looked around as if he was searching for something. Right? The third blessing is Shechiyanu, Vekimanu, Vehigiyanu, Lizman Hazeh. That's the third blessing, which means, blessed are you, O Lord our God, who has kept us alive and has preserved us and enabled us to reach this season. But immediately when he turned around, he turned his face back to the quivering little lights, and in a very strong, reassuring, comforting voice, he indeed chanted this third blessing. Shehechiyanu, Vekimanu, Vehigiyanu, Lizman Hazeh. Among the people present at the kindling of these lights was a Mr. Zaminchowski. He was one of the leaders of the Warsaw Bund. He was a clever, sincere person with a passion for discussing matters of religion, faith, and truth. And as soon as the rabbi had finished the ceremony of kindling the lights, this man elbowed his way to the rabbi and he said, Rabbi Spira, his name was Spira, you are a clever and honest man. I can understand the need to light Hanukkah candles in these wretched times. I can even understand the historical note of the second blessing, which is She'osa Nisim Lavasenu Bezman Hazeh, which translates, who wrought miracles for our fathers in the days of old, this season. But he questioned, why did you recite the third blessing? It's beyond me. How could you say and thank God for keeping us alive and preserving us and enabling us to reach this season? How could you say it when hundreds of dead Jewish bodies are literally lying within the shadows of the Hanukkah lights? When thousands of living Jewish skeletons are walking around the camp, millions more are being massacred? For this you are thankful to God. For this you praise the Lord. This you call keeping us alive. So the rabbi responded to him and said, you're 100% right. When I reached the third blessing, I also hesitated and asked myself, what should I do with this blessing? I turned my head in order to ask the other rabbis, other distinguished rabbis who were standing near me, if I might, should I recite this blessing? But just as I turned my head, I noticed that behind me a throng was standing, a large crowd of living Jews, their faces expressing faith, devotion, and liberation, that they were listening to the special mitzvah of candling the candlelights. And I said to myself, said the rabbi, if God has such people that at times like this, when during the lighting of the candlelights they see in front of them, despite seeing the heaps of bodies of their beloved fathers, brothers and sons, death is looking from every corner, if despite all of that they stand in throngs with devotion listening to the Hanukkah blessing, who perform miracles for our fathers in days of old at this season, said the rabbi, indeed I was blessed to see such people with so much faith and fervor. Then I felt I'm under a special obligation to recite this third blessing. You see, at that night in Bergen-Belsen, Mr. Zaminchowski only saw what lay before him. He saw the dead bodies and suffering, terrible suffering. The Rebbe also looked, but he saw another layer of truth. He saw deep the truth that was equally accurate, that there was a gathering of people who maintained this incredible faith despite the most horrific circumstances. So as we about to celebrate Hanukkah, let us remember there are truths all around us, not visible to the naked eye. Let us use the light of the Hanukkah, of the Hanukkah candles, to inspire ourselves to see the truth with clarity and to see that clarity with a 2020 vision. I also want to share with you there's something very special happening on the first night of Hanukkah, and that is on the 22nd, December 22nd, at 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. We look forward to presenting our annual Hanukkah telethon. And I want to first share with you a thought that came to mind, a story I heard in my own shul from a Mr. Mark Scherer. At one of the kiddushes, each week men and women get up at our kiddush after the services, and we all have a chance to share a thought, a meaningful insight. So Mr. Scherer shared this story with me, and I said, you know what? That's inspiring me of the importance of the Hanukkah telethon. And let me first tell you the story. But first, I want to say hello to all of us listening, and let's see hello to Dr. Kilshevsky. Thank you so much. They are listening from Connecticut, Baruch Hashem, and Lily and Boaz are also listening. Shalom to you. Barbara Goldstone, good morning to you. Susan Hirsch, you've joined us as well. Thank you. Here's the story. There was a Jewish person living in Crown Heights, Brooklyn, New York, whose name was Yankel. He owned a bakery there, and he had survived the Nazi concentration camps. He tells the following story. You know why am I still alive today? He says, I was a kid, just a teenager at that time. We were on a train in a boxcar being taken to Auschwitz. Night came, and it was freezing, deathly cold in that boxcar. The Germans would leave the cars on the side of the tracks overnight, sometimes for days on end without food, and of course, no blankets to keep us warm. Sitting next to me was an older Jew, a beloved elderly man who I recognized from my hometown. Although I recognized him, I had never seen him like this. He was shivering from head to toe and looked terrible. So I wrapped my arms around him and began rubbing him to warm him up. I rubbed his arms, his legs, his face, and his neck. I begged him to hang on. All night long, I kept the man warm this way. I was tired. I was freezing cold myself, and my fingers were numb. But I didn't stop rubbing the heat into this man's body. Hours after hours went by like this. Finally, the night passed, morning came, and the sun began to shine. And there was some warmth in the cabin. Then I looked around the car look around me to see what happened, what was going on around him. To my horror, all I could see, says Yankel, were frozen bodies. And all I could hear was a deathly silence. Nobody else in the cabin made it through the night. They died from frost. Only 2 people survived, the old man and myself. The old man survived because somebody kept him warm, and I survived because I was warming him. You see, the Hanukkah telethon is a worthy cause, my friends. It comes with a blessing. It's an opportunity. You see, when a person generously donates to our Hanukkah telethon, you actually warm other people's hearts. With that, you remain warm yourself. When we seek to support and encourage and inspire others, we actually discover an encouragement, a reciprocation in our own life as well. And that's what I share with you. That's the secret of the Hanukkah Telethon 101. With this, I want to now share with you some exciting news, because this idea of caring for others and reciprocating it, the care that we will gain for helping others, is I want to share with you exciting news that there is now being launched what is called the Chabad Inclusion Initiative. This is a focus of our Hanukkah Telethon. It's dedicated, building on the philosophy and the mission of Chabad, on the importance of providing education to all of ourselves and resources to advance inclusion and caring of people with disabilities. In our synagogue, we're urgently raising money to put in an elevator so those with disabilities can come to shul, can attend events. And we are dedicated to creating this culture of inclusion so that everyone can feel welcomed, supported, and valued throughout their entire life cycle. I want to bring it to your attention that many years ago, 1959, an amazing exchange of letters was between the Rebbe, Rabbi Schneerson, and a very famous scholar in Israel. And it was discussing the importance should a guide and service dogs be used by people with disabilities be permitted in the synagogue? This question has become more relevant in recent years as we strive to include people with disabilities in Jewish life. A recent translation of this letter from the Rebbe to Rabbi Menachem Mendel Kasher, who was a Polish-born Israeli rabbi, addresses this question. Of course, for those who are not aware, guide dogs are trained to work with people who are blind or deaf, and service dogs are trained to work with people who have diverse diagnoses, including physical disabilities, medical conditions such as seizure disorders or low blood sugar and autism. These special trained dogs may retrieve objects that are out of the person's reach, provide assistance in daily living activities, alert people to potential seizures, and can assist in many other individual tasks as needed. So a service or guide dog is an accommodation put in place so that an individual with a disability can participate in society as do non-disabled peers. So service animals are not pets. You can identify a working service dog because it is wearing a vest or a collar. Treating them like a pet, offering treats or petting, can distract the animal from his or her job of supporting the individual they work for. If someone brings an service animal to the synagogue, it is because that animal gives them support they need in order to be there. So the Rebbe addressed this and spoke glowingly and importantly and underscoring of the importance of allowing guide dogs in the synagogue. This goes back to, as I mentioned, 1959. This was over 30 years before the Americans with Disabilities Act was signed into law on July 26, 1990. And the Rebbe's thoughts on this matter are unbelievably accommodating, of underlining it's important for the person to be allowed to come to the synagogue and to enable the person to make the comfortable presence and enjoying the synagogue and its services or anything that the synagogue provides in a most welcoming way. And therefore, I want to let you know that during the Chanukah Telethon, we will hear from experts, and we will share with you some of the important events that we are undertaking of this inclusive, Chabad inclusive initiative to help those with disabilities. And I think one of the most important things that I've learned during this past, late summer, I had to address this of mental health, mental wellness in the Jewish community. And I came to realize that there are so many myths and truths, and most people have no idea how to deal with someone with these disabilities. And I just want to share with you some of the key issues of how to do this, so we can all become a little more educated in this matter. When you're talking about someone who has a disability or an illness, don't say that person suffers from or is a victim. If someone has a heart attack or a stroke, they either survive it or they don't. They don't suffer it. We live with conditions. We're not victims of them. Another thing that it's so important, and that's something that bothers me to no end, and I'm asking everybody listening today, if you have access to a foundation or yourself are blessed to make a major contribution towards our elevator in our synagogue, please call us. Please call us. Email us. Our phone number is 516-739-3636. This is not an appeal. This is reality. Because a social hall or a sanctuary, we have to always be aware of the needs of congregants who can appreciate our assistance. Some people need help to get into the room, to get to a seat, or to serve them food. The wheelchair access restroom is there for people who have disabilities or are helping someone else to use it. And that's something that we lack as well. I'm not embarrassed. I am embarrassed to tell you that. Surely our synagogue was built back in 1932, but now we have to upgrade ourselves. So I beg of you, I appeal to you. My friends, this is what we're focusing on. Please help us so those with disabilities have proper accessible restrooms and the elevator that will bring them from the street up to our synagogue or into our ballroom. Obviously, we're very happy that the ends of the sidewalks near our synagogue, like most places, have been leveled down, so those with wheelchairs or have difficulty or leaving their cars can get to their cars, can come from their cars. We also have to appreciate the assistive devices, walkers, canes, crutches, wheelchairs, or scooters. We have to, you have to be very careful to give them those things respect, because touching them is like touching the owner. Don't move them. Don't lean on them. Don't put anything on them. Don't hang your tallis on them. If it's really in the way, tell the owner and ask them where it can be put. If you're talking to someone with a disability, maintain eye contact. Speak slowly, clearly. Don't cover your mouth with your hands with a pencil. If the person you're talking to is hard of hearing or deaf, they can't understand you if they can't see your mouth moving. Don't yell or talk extra loudly. It won't help. And please, another thing which is important, please don't talk over each other. For those who have difficulty hearing, it's because it becomes just a lot of noise. So attitude is everything. Please don't say or do anything to give the impression that you think people who have disabilities are not happy or healthy as anyone else. When you get up from a chair at one of the tables, please push the chair as far in as possible as you can. For people who do not see well or those with poor balance, a chair sitting unexpectedly away from the table is a real hazard. You may say to me, Rabbi, what are you talking about? What's this all about? My friends, I'm on this campaign. It's called Chabad Inclusive Initiative, to be able to learn, to discuss, and in February we're dedicating, as well as more than 1,000 Chabad houses across the United States, a special Shabbaton, all about inclusiveness, with the sermon, with speakers, with a panel, all to help those, to include others with mental issues and disabilities. So if someone appears sad or upset, don't be afraid to ask if they're all right. Don't ignore the question if it makes you uncomfortable. If there's something you can't deal with, so tell the rabbi. Here's something else, and I say this very respectfully. Don't ignore the scent-free rule. In our synagogue, we remind everyone, don't come to shul smelling with Old Spice or Young Spice or whatever, all these kinds of, perfumes, because some congregants are extremely sensitive to fragrances. Even the really expensive perfumes, even if you went and spent $500 on an ounce of Weisswasdaten, some water, do me a favor, use it in your house, wherever else, but in shul, be careful. Remember, it's not just for ourselves, for everybody, and everybody has different, allergies and different things. If you put fish or eggs into food where it won't be expected, put a note on it when it's on the table for Kiddush or Oneg Shabbos, because we have to warn and be cognizant and caring about those with food allergies. Don't forget, no nuts in any foods, ever. Don't assume you know what help someone needs or doesn't need. Ask. If you're told that someone needs assistance, please listen to what they want and follow directions as closely as you can. Don't say yes out of guilt. If you don't feel comfortable in providing a particular assistance, say so and offer to find someone else who can do it. Unless it's really an emergency, in which case you do the best you can without injuring yourself or the other person. This is your host, Rabbi Pearl. Time has grabbed me, but you got the message. Have a wonderful day. Stay well, stay safe, and all the best. Sei gesund.